The call came at 3 a.m., my mother's voice shaking with rage instead of the usual fake concern. "Jameson, after everything we've done to accept you being gay, this is how you repay us?" But we both knew the real issue wasn't my boyfriend Giovanni. It was the monthly checks I'd finally stopped sending. I sat up in the dark of my San Francisco apartment, heart hammering, staring at the phone like it had grown teeth. 6 months earlier, when I had flown home to Chicago for Thanksgiving and told them I was gay, the reaction had been pure theater. Mom cried happy tears. Dad clapped my shoulder so hard it stung. And my sister Lauren even posted a rainbow-filtered photo on Facebook with the caption, "Proud of my brother no matter what." They hugged Giovanni over video calls, asked about his Italian family recipes, and swore nothing would change. I believed them. Why wouldn't I? I was 28, making 6 figures as a senior software engineer at a fintech startup, and for years I had quietly covered their mortgage shortfall, Lauren's community college tuition, and Dad's back surgery deductible. Money had always been the glue holding us together. Now it was the match that would burn everything down. I met Giovanni 6 months before the coming-out trip at a tech mixer in the Mission District. He was 30, a graphic designer with warm brown eyes and a quiet laugh that made the noise of the room disappear. We talked for hours about everything and nothing. Favorite hiking trails in Marin, the way San Francisco fog felt like a second skin, how both of us had spent our 20s trying to be the perfect sons. Our first real date was a sunrise hike at Land's End, where the Pacific crashed below us and he slipped his hand into mine without asking. By the time I introduced him to my family on that video call, I was already imagining a future where I didn't have to choose between loving him and keeping my parents afloat. The money started small. Dad lost his warehouse job right after my college graduation, and I wired a few hundred to help with rent. Then it became $1,000 a month when Lauren's scholarship fell through. Mom's part-time job at the diner barely covered groceries. I told myself it was temporary, that success meant lifting everyone up. Giovanni never complained, even when I skipped weekend getaways to cover an unexpected car repair for my parents. He just squeezed my hand and said, "You're a good son, Jameson. We'll figure the rest out together." But the night of that 3 a.m. call, something inside me finally snapped. I had just signed the papers on a small house in No Valley, a place with a backyard big enough for the dog we kept talking about adopting. The down payment wiped out the last of my emergency fund, and the mortgage was tight. When Mom casually mentioned that Dad needed new dentures and Lauren's laptop had died, I heard myself say the words I'd practiced in the mirror for weeks. "I can't send anything this month, Mom, or next month. I'm building my own life now." The silence on the line was louder than any scream. By morning the text started. "Dad, we supported you when you told us you were gay. This is how you treat family. Lauren, I guess your boyfriend is more important than us now." I stared at the messages until the screen blurred, wondering how the same people who had toasted Giovanni at Christmas could suddenly make my love sound like a betrayal. Giovanni found me on the couch, still in yesterday's clothes, and pulled me into his arms without a word. His steady heartbeat against my ear was the only thing that kept me from falling apart. That week at work I moved through meetings like a ghost. My boss praised the new feature I'd coded, but all I could think about was the mortgage statement waiting in my inbox and the family group chat that had gone eerily quiet. Giovanni cooked my favorite pasta that night, the one with fresh basil from the rooftop garden he tended. Over dinner he asked gently, "Do you want to talk about it?" I told him everything, the guilt, the fear that maybe they were right, that I was selfish for choosing us. He listened, then said, "Love isn't a transaction, Jameson. Real acceptance doesn't come with a price tag." His words landed like a lifeline, but I still couldn't shake the feeling that I had just lit the fuse on the only family I had ever known. The silence from Chicago lasted exactly 9 days. Then the dam broke. Mom called during my lunch break, voice syrupy at first, reminding me of every sacrifice they had made. How Dad worked double shifts so I could go to college. How she had sewn my prom suit by hand even though she hated sewing. "We never judged you for being gay," she said, as if the word still tasted foreign on her tongue. "We welcomed Giovanni with open arms." All we're asking is for a little help until your father gets back on his feet. I reminded her that Dad's back on his feet had been 3 years in the making. She hung up crying. Giovanni and I spent that weekend packing boxes for the new house. He kept the mood light, playing old Italian folk songs on his phone while we labeled kitchen crates. But every time my phone buzzed with another family notification, I felt the knot in my stomach tighten. Lauren sent screenshots of her tuition invoice. Dad forwarded a medical bill with the passive-aggressive note, "No pressure. Just thought you should know." Each message chipped away at the fragile piece I had tried to build. Giovanni noticed the way my shoulders tensed every time the phone lit up. One night he set it on airplane mode, pulled me onto the balcony, and said, "You don't owe them your entire future, Jameson. You've already given them years." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But the guilt was a living thing, whispering that maybe love meant bleeding yourself dry. I started sleeping less, waking at 4 a.m. to stare at the ceiling and replay every family dinner where they had smiled at Giovanni like he was already one of us. Had it all been an act? The thought made my chest ache. At work, I snapped at a junior developer over a minor bug, then apologized in the hallway like a man drowning. Giovanni brought home flowers, sunflowers my favorite, and didn't ask questions when I buried my face in his shoulder and cried for the first time in years. The breaking point came on a rainy Tuesday. Mom sent a long email listing every dollar I had ever sent, complete with interest calculations she had clearly Googled. The subject line read, "What family means." I read it twice, then forwarded it to Giovanni with the note, "I think I'm done." He called me immediately, voice calm but firm. "Then be done, Jameson. We'll figure out the rest." That night we sat on the floor of the empty new house, surrounded by boxes, and made a plan. I would send one final transfer, enough to cover the next 3 months while they adjusted, and then the tap would close. I hit send on the bank app with shaking fingers, then turned off my phone and let Giovanni hold me until the shaking stopped. The final transfer cleared on a Friday. By Saturday morning, the family group chat exploded. Dad's message was short and vicious. "Guess the gay lifestyle means forgetting where you came from." Lauren posted a screenshot of the empty bank notification with the caption, "Blood is thicker than money," or so I thought. Mom called 14 times in 1 hour. I let every call go to voicemail, then listened to them in order. The first was pleading. The second was angry. By the 10th, she was sobbing that I had chosen sin over family. The word sin landed like a slap. 6 months of rainbow hugs, and now this. Giovanni found me sitting on the back steps of the new house, phone in my lap, staring at the fog rolling in over the hills. He sat beside me without speaking, just rested his hand on my knee. After a while I told him about the messages, the word sin, the way my own mother had rewritten our history in a single afternoon. He listened, then said quietly, "People show you who they are when the money stops flowing. I'm sorry it had to be like this." We sat there until the fog turned golden in the late sun, and for the first time I felt something besides guilt, something sharp and clean that felt a lot like freedom. Monday at work, I walked into my boss's office and asked for a raise. Not because I needed the money for my family, but because I needed to know I could stand on my own. She granted it on the spot, impressed by my recent projects. That night Giovanni and I celebrated with cheap takeout on the living room floor because the furniture hadn't arrived yet. We laughed about ridiculous things, the way my dad once tried to fix a leaky roof with duct tape, the time Lauren dyed her hair purple in high school. The laughter felt like medicine, but the calm didn't last. Wednesday brought a certified letter from my parents' lawyer. Nothing official, just a family friend who wrote that they were disappointed and hoped I would reconsider my choices. The word choices was underlined twice. Giovanni read it over my shoulder and shook his head. "They're testing you," he said. "Don't flinch." I didn't. I wrote a short reply. "I love you all, but I can't keep paying for a love that has conditions." Then I blocked the lawyer's email. The backlash came in waves. First, the distant relatives. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years flooded my social media with Bible verses and prayers for my lost soul. Then Lauren showed up in San Francisco unannounced, suitcase in hand, claiming she needed a break from mom's crying. She lasted 2 days in our guest room before the questions started. How can you just cut them off? Dad's blood pressure is through the roof. I tried to explain budgets, boundaries, the house we were still furnishing on a single income. She rolled her eyes. Giovanni's got you brainwashed. The next morning she was gone, leaving a note that said I had chosen a stranger over blood. Giovanni held me when I read it, but I could see the anger flickering in his eyes. He had grown up in a loud, loving Italian family in New Jersey that had welcomed me with open arms and plates of homemade cannoli. He couldn't understand how my own blood could turn so cold. We spent that weekend hiking in Point Reyes, letting the wind off the ocean scrub away some of the poison. On the drive home, he asked, "Do you regret stopping the money?" I thought about it for a long mile of highway. "I regret that it took money to expose the truth," I said finally. He nodded, and we drove the rest of the way in comfortable silence. Work became my sanctuary. I threw myself into a major product launch, staying late, coming home exhausted but proud. Giovanni waited up with tea and quiet conversation. One night he surprised me with tickets to a Giants game, our first real date night in months. We sat in the bleachers eating overpriced hot dogs, cheering like teenagers, and for 3 hours the family drama felt far away. But Sunday morning the phone rang again. This time it was Dad. His voice was hoarse. "Son, your mother hasn't slept in days. She keeps saying she failed as a parent because her boy turned his back on her." I almost caved. Almost. Then I remembered the word sin and the lawyer's letter. "I didn't turn my back," I said. "You did when the checks stopped." He hung up without another word. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay beside Giovanni listening to his steady breathing and wondered if I would ever feel whole again. The boy who had sent money to keep the peace was gone. In his place was a man learning that love without conditions was the only kind worth keeping. The lowest point came in late October. My parents changed their number and blocked me on every platform. Lauren posted a long, tear-stained video about toxic family members who choose partners over parents. The comments were brutal. Old high school friends calling me selfish, distant aunts saying I had abandoned God and family. I read them in the dark of my office at 2 a.m., chest tight, wondering if maybe they were right. Giovanni found me there, eyes red, and gently closed the laptop. "Come to bed," he whispered. "Tomorrow we start building something new." The next morning he drove me to a small counseling center in the Castro. I had resisted therapy for months, convinced I could handle it alone. The therapist, a kind man named Marcus, listened without judgment while I poured out the whole story. The coming out hugs, the money, the sudden homophobia once the checks dried up. He nodded and said something that lodged in my heart. Conditional love is control wearing a family mask. For the first time I cried without shame. Giovanni waited in the lobby with coffee and a patient smile. On the drive home he said, "I'm proud of you for going." We spent the next weeks creating rituals that were ours alone. Sunday morning farmers market runs, evening walks along the Embarcadero, late-night talks about the future. I started volunteering at a local LGBTQ youth center, mentoring kids who were terrified of coming out. Their stories reminded me why boundaries mattered. Giovanni's family invited us to New Jersey for Thanksgiving. His mother hugged me like I had never left, and his father clapped my back the way mine used to before everything soured. For 4 days I felt what unconditional love actually looked like. By December I had paid off the last of the house renovations and even started a small savings account for the dog we still hadn't adopted. The ache of losing my birth family never fully left, but it no longer defined me. Giovanni proposed on Christmas Eve under the lights of Union Square, simple and perfect, just us and the city humming around us. I said yes before he finished the question. Spring arrived in San Francisco like a promise kept. The house smelled of fresh paint and new beginnings. We finally brought home a rescue mutt named Luca, who immediately claimed the sunny spot by the window. Giovanni's design business was thriving. My promotion at work came with stock options that felt like security instead of guilt money. We planted tomatoes in the backyard and talked about the wedding we wanted. Small, by the ocean, with his loud Italian relatives and the few friends who had stuck by me. One quiet Saturday morning, I opened the mail and found a single card from my mother. No return address. Inside was a short note in her careful handwriting. I miss you. I'm sorry it took losing you to see what I lost. I read it twice, then showed it to Giovanni. He didn't tell me what to do. He just held my hand while I cried. I wrote back a single line. I miss you too. When you're ready to love me without conditions, the door is open. I didn't expect a reply and none came. But the card stayed on the mantel, a small white flag in the war that had once been my family. Years later, when people asked how I survived cutting ties with the people who raised me, I told them the truth. I didn't survive it alone. Giovanni stood beside me through every sleepless night and every angry voicemail. He taught me that real family is built, not inherited, and that love without price tags is the only love worth fighting for. We got married on a sunny cliff in Big Sur with Luca wearing a tiny bow tie. As I slipped the ring onto Giovanni's finger, I finally understood what acceptance really meant. True or false? A family's acceptance of their gay son is genuine only if it doesn't depend on him being the financial provider?